Have you ever wondered what Princess Diana was really doing in her final hours before that tragic night in Paris? The official story tells us one thing, but recently uncovered details paint a completely different picture of August 30th, 1997. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you understand one of the most shocking events of the 20th century. Most people think they know what happened to Princess Diana, but the truth about her last day alive contains mysteries that have puzzled investigators for over 2 decades. Tonight, we're diving deep into the hidden timeline, the unexplained phone calls, the mysterious delays, and the crucial decisions that would ultimately seal her fate. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some of the world's most experienced investigators still have serious questions about that night in Paris. But first, let me take you back to where this story really begins, because Diana's final day didn't start in France at all. August 30th, 1997 began like many other summer days for Princess Diana. She was staying at Mohammed Al Fayed's villa in the French Riviera with Dodi Al Fayed, enjoying what seemed to be a blossoming romance away from the relentless British press. But even in this Mediterranean paradise, Diana couldn't escape the constant pressure of being the most photographed woman in the world. The couple had been together for just a few weeks, yet their relationship was already generating intense media speculation. Photographers lined the beaches, boats circled the coastline, and paparazzi waited at every possible exit point. For Diana, this wasn't unusual, but the intensity seemed to be reaching new levels. What makes this day particularly intriguing is a series of phone calls Diana made throughout the morning. She spoke with her sons, William and Harry, who were at Balmoral with their father. She also made calls to several close friends, including Rosa Monckton and Annabelle Goldsmith. But here's where things get interesting. According to these friends, Diana seemed unusually reflective during these conversations. Rosa Monckton later revealed that Diana spoke about wanting to make some major changes in her life. She mentioned being tired of the constant media attention and expressed a desire to retreat more from public life. Some interpreted this as typical Diana, always contemplating her next move. Others would later wonder if she sensed something was about to change dramatically. Around midday, an unexpected decision was made. Originally, Diana and Dodi planned to stay another day in the south of France. Suddenly, their plans changed. They would fly to Paris that afternoon instead. This change wasn't in any official schedule, and it caught even their security team off guard. The reason for this sudden change has never been fully explained. Some suggest it was Dodi's idea, that he wanted to take Diana to his apartment in Paris. Others claim Diana herself wanted to return to London sooner, and Paris was a logical stopping point. But this spontaneous decision would prove to be the first in a series of choices that would lead them directly into harm's way. The flight from Nice to Paris took place around 3:30 in the afternoon. During this journey, something else unusual happened. Dodi made several phone calls, including some to jewelry stores in Paris. This detail would later fuel speculation about his intentions, with many believing he was planning to propose to Diana. Whether this is true remains uncertain, but it adds another layer to the emotional weight of that day. They landed at Le Bourget Airport, where a small crowd of photographers was waiting. This wasn't unusual, but Diana seemed more agitated than normal by their presence. Witnesses noted that she appeared tense and repeatedly asked about alternative routes to avoid the cameras. Here's where the timeline gets particularly crucial. The couple was driven to the Ritz Hotel, owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al Fayed. They arrived around 4:30 p.m. and went directly to the Imperial Suite. For the next few hours, they remained in the hotel, but their evening plans were constantly changing. Initially, they were supposed to dine at a restaurant called Chez Benoit. Reservations were made, security was arranged, and the route was planned. But as evening approached, these plans were scrapped. The reason? Too many photographers had gathered outside the restaurant. Instead, they decided to eat at the Ritz itself. During dinner at the Ritz, Diana and Dodi seemed relaxed and happy according to hotel staff. They shared champagne, talked quietly, and appeared to be enjoying each other's company. But outside, the situation was escalating. More photographers were arriving, and crowds of curious onlookers were gathering. This brings us to one of the most controversial decisions of the entire evening. Around 10 p.m., it was decided that Diana and Dodi would return to Dodi's apartment on Rue Arsène Housset. This meant leaving the safety of the Ritz and venturing back into the chaos of Paris streets filled with paparazzi. But here's where the mystery deepens. Instead of using their regular driver and security car, a different plan was hatched. Henri Paul, the Ritz's deputy head of security, would drive them in a different Mercedes. Meanwhile, their regular driver would act as a decoy, leaving through the front entrance to draw away the photographers. This decision has puzzled investigators for years. Henri Paul wasn't Diana's regular driver. He wasn't part of her usual security detail. Yet suddenly, he was entrusted with the most important job of the evening, getting the most famous woman in the world safely across Paris. What makes this even more mysterious is Henri Paul's activities earlier that evening. He had left the Ritz around 8 p.m., returning just before midnight. Where did he go during those 4 hours? This question has never been satisfactorily answered. Some witnesses claim they saw him at local bars, but this has never been confirmed. When Henri Paul returned to the Ritz just before midnight, hotel staff noted he seemed confident and upbeat. He joked with colleagues and appeared eager to take on the driving assignment. There was no indication of the tragedy that would unfold just minutes later. The plan seemed simple enough. Diana, Dodi, and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones would slip out the back entrance of the Ritz, while the paparazzi were distracted by the decoy car leaving the front. Henri Paul would drive them quickly to Dodi's apartment, avoiding the main boulevards where photographers might be waiting. At 12:20 a.m. on August 31st, the plan was put into action. The 3 passengers climbed into the back of the black Mercedes S280, with Henri Paul behind the wheel. Security cameras captured their departure from the Ritz, showing Henri Paul accelerating quickly into the Paris night. But the decoy plan didn't work as intended. Several photographers realized what was happening and began following the Mercedes through the Paris streets. This is where witness accounts become crucial and, unfortunately, contradictory. Some photographers who followed the car claim Henri Paul was driving erratically, accelerating and braking suddenly. Others suggest the car was moving at excessive speeds from the moment it left the Ritz. What everyone agrees on is that the Mercedes was being pursued by several motorcycles carrying photographers. The route Henri Paul chose has also raised questions. Instead of taking the most direct path to Dodi's apartment, he opted for a longer route that took them along the Seine via the Cours la Reine and into the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Why he chose this particular route remains unclear. As the Mercedes entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at approximately 12:23 a.m., something catastrophic happened. The car struck the 13th pillar of the tunnel at tremendous speed. Henri Paul and Dodi Al-Fayed were killed instantly. Diana was severely injured but still alive, and Trevor Rees-Jones, though critically injured, would survive. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. The first people to reach the crash scene weren't emergency responders or police. They were photographers. Instead of immediately calling for help, several of them began taking pictures of the wreckage. This detail has haunted Diana's family and friends for decades. It took several minutes before anyone called emergency services. When paramedics finally arrived, they found Diana conscious, but trapped in the wreckage. She was talking and appeared to be responsive, which initially gave hope that she might survive her injuries. The decision was made to transport Diana to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, about 4 miles away. But the ambulance journey that should have taken 15 minutes stretched to over an hour. The official explanation was that paramedics had to stop twice to stabilize Diana's condition. Critics have questioned whether different medical decisions might have saved her life. During this agonizing journey, Diana's condition deteriorated rapidly. She suffered a cardiac arrest and massive internal bleeding. Despite the efforts of France's top trauma surgeons, Princess Diana was pronounced dead at 4 a.m., just 4 hours after leaving the Ritz Hotel. The immediate aftermath was chaos. News of the crash spread rapidly, but initial reports were confused and contradictory. Some early bulletins suggested Diana might survive. Others reported that Dodi had initially survived the impact. It would be hours before the full scope of the tragedy became clear. Within hours, conspiracy theories began to emerge. How could such an experienced security operation go so wrong? Why were normal protocols abandoned that night? Was the crash really just a tragic accident, or was something more sinister at play? The French investigation concluded that Henri Paul was intoxicated at the time of the crash, and that excessive speed was the primary cause of the accident. Tests showed his blood alcohol level was more than 3 times the legal limit. But this finding raised even more questions. How could hotel staff not notice that Henri Paul was intoxicated? Why wasn't he tested for alcohol before being entrusted with such an important assignment? Some witnesses who interacted with him that evening swear he showed no signs of being drunk. More troubling still, the source of Henri Paul's alcohol consumption remains mysterious. If he was drinking during those 4 hours he was away from the Ritz, where was he drinking and with whom? These questions have never been answered satisfactorily. The paparazzi pursuit has also remained controversial. While photographers were initially charged with involuntary manslaughter, these charges were eventually dropped. The investigation concluded that while their pursuit may have contributed to the crash, it wasn't the direct cause. But families of the victims have never accepted this conclusion. Mohammed Al-Fayed spent years and millions of pounds pursuing alternative theories about his son's death. He maintained that Diana and Dodi were murdered by British intelligence services, who couldn't accept the possibility of Diana marrying a Muslim man. These theories were thoroughly investigated during the British inquest that concluded in 2008. The jury ultimately ruled that Diana and Dodi were unlawfully killed due to gross negligence by Henri Paul and the pursuing paparazzi. But even this conclusion hasn't satisfied everyone seeking answers. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Diana's final night is how many small decisions and chance events aligned to create the perfect storm for tragedy. If they had stayed in the south of France one more day, if they had eaten at the original restaurant, if they had stayed at the Ritz overnight, if they had used their regular driver, if Henri Paul hadn't been drinking, any one of these different choices might have changed everything. The psychological impact on her sons has been profound and lasting. Both William and Harry have spoken about how their mother's death shaped their relationship with the media and their understanding of the price of fame. The circumstances of that night continue to influence their decisions about privacy and security to this day. What makes Diana's final night even more tragic is that it represented the culmination of her long struggle with media intrusion. Throughout her adult life, she had a complex relationship with the press, sometimes courting publicity for her charitable causes, while other times desperately seeking privacy for herself and her children. On August 30th, 1997, that delicate balance collapsed entirely. The very attention she had sometimes used to amplify her humanitarian work became the force that pursued her through the streets of Paris to her death. The photographers who had helped make her the most famous woman in the world became unwitting participants in her final moments. The legacy of that night extends far beyond the immediate tragedy. It sparked a global conversation about media ethics, celebrity privacy, and the responsibility of the public in consuming paparazzi photography. Many news organizations implemented new guidelines about purchasing photographs taken in emergency situations. Diana's death also transformed how the British royal family communicates with the public. The initial cold response from Buckingham Palace to the tragedy taught them valuable lessons about showing emotion and connecting with public grief. This change in approach has influenced royal communications ever since. For those who loved Diana, the mystery of her final night represents more than just unanswered questions about a traffic accident. It symbolizes the broader tragedy of a life cut short, just as she was finding new happiness and purpose. She was exploring a new relationship, planning new charitable ventures, and looking forward to watching her sons grow into young men. The truth about Princess Diana's last night probably lies somewhere between the official conclusion and the wildest conspiracy theories. It was likely a perfect storm of poor decisions, bad luck, and tragic circumstances rather than a carefully orchestrated plot. But the unanswered questions ensure that August 30th, 1997, remains one of the most scrutinized and debated dates in modern history. What happened in Paris that night changed the world in ways we're still understanding today. It ended the life of a woman who had become a global symbol of compassion and grace. It shattered the innocence of two young princes who lost their mother in the most public way imaginable. And it reminded us all of the deadly, serious consequences that can result from our endless appetite for celebrity and scandal. The mystery of Diana's final night isn't just about what happened in that tunnel. It's about how a fairy tale princess became trapped in a nightmare of fame that ultimately consumed her. And perhaps that's the real tragedy we should remember. Not just how Princess Diana died, but how she lived, and what she might have accomplished if she had survived that terrible night in Paris.